Such volatile trade being dictated to a large extent by what's playing out in the global arena, where on the one side we've got some still nervous about earnings season and others displaying enthusiasm in terms of their outlooks. What sense are you making of current market sentiment?
Alishia, you are correct. A lot of volatility. And it's really a play between company earning results and macroeconomic factors that are coming out. We saw positive exporter numbers coming out of the UK this morning, and we saw out of Taiwan. We saw those exports increase, and then of course the market's really looking forward today to this afternoon. We are going to see Goldman's earnings out this afternoon, which are going to be very, very pivotal, and then building permits and housing starts this afternoon, which are an indication of whether the US economy has started to recover, or has it still bottoming out. So really still nervousness. We see a lot of profit taking. We saw the banks come off today, as well as SO we saw a bit of a downgrade coming through there and an upgrade on MTN. So mixed bag and a lot of volatility.
Well, taking a look at some of the activity we're seeing, volumes are up, sitting at 2.6 billion on the day. Where are you seeing this activity?
Alishia, we're seeing it in terms of the banking sector. We saw Bulletin also in your top 10 traded for today. We saw SO coming off there with a downgrade coming through, and MTN, we've seen MTN coming through with the BEE empowerment deal last week, as well as the upgrade. Nedbank as a buy in the stock. We think it's going to be the best performer out of the telco sector. So very positive for MTN, and we're going to see it hopefully run to 135 in the next year.
Well, let's take a look at some of the other company news out that's affecting things. Announcements that Aquarius Platinum will be allowed to consult with South Africa's Department of Minerals and Resources to set out best mining practices mine by mine. We've had mention made of Merafe joining that bandwagon as well. It's now starting to filter through to the market. It seems that share price on Aquarius Platinum trading 11.5% to the good. How are you reading that story as it develops, Yolanda?
Alishia, I think what is important there, and why the market took it quite negatively, is Aquarius wasn't able to prepare the market for that. The DMR came out with that blanket statement and that blanket ruling without them really being prepared for it, and without having to to sit down and negotiate. And I think what's really positive now is that they are sitting down, they've had the meeting, they're going to look at a strategy. And our mines in South Africa are some of the most dangerous in the world. So I think it's positive. They're looking at a way forward, and we can see it, investors liking it, and they will have to have some kind of resolution, or else we're just going to see job losses. So it's important for the DMR to have a settle, and to also for investor sentiment to settle this in a very good and constructive manner for going forward for all our recourse clients.
So that initial reaction, then the market reacting to what possible outcomes would have been if that blanket ruling wasn't lifted, where costs would have been the outweighing factor. Now with this emerging, what's your view and what sense are you getting in terms of how effective regulations are in general over the mines?
I think when one looks at cost of life, you can't put a price on cost of life, but one has to be circumspect, and also do it in a manner where all the parties are aware, and look at possible ways of settling it and moving forward. Work together with the mines, work together with our companies, and if unfortunately if this doesn't get done, in the future we're going to have companies not investing in South Africa. But in terms of our mining, I think it can only be positive. The statement out this morning, and going forward, our government just needs to do that. The regulators just need to talk to companies and smooth out the process.
That's certainly in a context where platinum miners lost about 10% of production last year as a result of safety-related stoppages. Taking a look specifically at Aquarius, in your books, in terms of production and earnings potential moving forward, how's it looking?
Well, Alishia, if the blanket mandate stays as it is, it could bring the earnings down between 30 and 40%. You'll possibly see mining volumes drop by 40%, and with increasing costs, labor costs, mining costs coming through, increasing those costs by 25%, it would possibly bring that mine down, at operating at marginal, or if possible, loss-making mining. So in real terms, very negative for them. But the regulator, they have met with the regulator, so hopefully something positive will come out. A compromise will come out going forward, and we won't see that.
Well, certainly we've got the earnings season in focus on a global scale as well, and with that, prospects for companies like this in every arena just proving to be so important. But also the banking space globally, things are getting interesting. Let's start with the global perspective, where this week we've got European bank stress tests, results being revealed, reports revealing so far that one bank already has not met that 6% capital ratio in the Eurozone. What's the market pricing in that regard?
I think the market has been very cautious. I think in terms of expectations that a lot of the banks are probably not going to meet that capital ratio. But the market is probably expecting, with all the liquidity that has been pumped into Europe, into the United States, that they're not going to allow the banks to fail. And what is really important about this, in terms of the finding, is really to see the state of European banks, of the European economy. How long is it going to take for them to recover? And that's going to be very important and very positive for them in the long run, because in terms of having indecision and worries and concerns about that industry, it does more damage not knowing the state of the European banks. So I think it's going to be positive, and it really is going to depend on how the EU is going to manage the state of the banks going forward.
Well, locally, earnings season kicks off here in South Africa pretty soon. What's your outlook for our banks and their first half numbers?
I think what's important about the outlook for the first half of the year, generally the first half of the year is a little bit more quieter when compared to your second half of the year. But we have had the World Cup. We've seen, hopefully we'll see the effects of the lower interest rates, and we should see the lower debt cost ratio with bad debt. That will be important to see how those numbers are faring. And then obviously in terms of the endowment effect, obviously the lower interest rates, banks will not have made as much on their excess capital. I think it's going to be quite an interesting season. Banks generally have done 5%, they're up 5% on the year. I think they're only going to do better in the next half of the year. So I think it'll be interesting to see those numbers. And also, they're a domestic play, so it really one has to look at where SA is going to be in the next 6 months. Are job creation? Are we going to see consumer spending? And also repayment of debt. So I think it's going to be an interesting season, but I hopefully positive, Alishia.
Well, on that note, let's leave it there. Yolanda, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. Of course, Yolanda Le Roux,